Welcome to the 2019 ISR presentations. We've got some creative and talented individuals that you're going to see here in a second. I wanted to give a brief overview of the mission for the program, create an opportunity for interns to gain effective career experience while meeting Amway's needs for talented, capable, and business-minded problem solvers. As you see throughout the presentations, you will see that today. Some goals for today for the interns to share who they are, brief introduction, how they delivered on their projects and initiatives, what they learned throughout the summer, and Amway's opportunities for an outside-in perspective on what we have in the future and how we can continue that talent pipeline. Format, high-level format is individuals get about 5 minutes and then about 2 minutes for questions. I'll moderate an MC. Group, it's approximately 8 minutes, but it'll be a little bit more depending on how many people are there. And then we'll have applause and we'll have up next, so I'll help continue this on. So, with that, I'm not going to waste any time. Let's do this. First up, we have Dhruv and Alex. Let's give them a hand.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking to you about our summer project revolving around cloud security governance. So my name's Alex Israels. I'm going to be a senior at Michigan Tech studying computer engineering and with a minor in business economics. I was on the infrastructure public cloud team this year, filling the role as a cloud engineer.
Hi, my name is Dhruv, and I'm an information technology major at University of Cincinnati, cybersecurity. I minor in psychology, and I worked with the information security and risk team this summer. My role was that of a security engineer. So the goal of our project was to create an automated solution for monitoring the security of Amway's public cloud accounts to minimize the risk to ABO information and help them feel more secure.
So to fulfill this solution, we started off with a CloudFormation template that generated our two databases in DynamoDB, a historical database and a current state database. From there, we use PowerShell scripts that are invoked on a Windows task scheduling machine that take the data and write it to our current state and historical databases. I also made an API gateway for Dhruv to be able to securely access this data and process it to create actionable items that he's going to be talking about now.
So what Alex talked about was the back end of our solution. What I worked with was the front end. So that entails tools like Alteryx and Tableau. What Alteryx does is pull the data from API gateway and push it into Tableau to create the visualizations.
So a little bit more about the back end and our process for gathering the data and why we chose DynamoDB. Our main tools, as stated before, were PowerShell and DynamoDB through Amazon Web Services. DynamoDB is a cost-effective and efficient solution for us because it's able to handle dynamic data. And I'm going to start explaining a little bit about our data and why we chose, and that's why we chose DynamoDB. So for each AWS account, we have a set of security controls. And under each of these security controls, there are a number of checks. Each check is unique to that security control. What this does is it results in gaps in our data. So what we're looking at here are two separate security controls with a number of checks associated with them. So as you can see, there are gaps here, so we don't get a very nice, fulfilled spreadsheet. And this is just a small snippet of that data. Right, what we're looking at are just two controls across a handful of accounts. We actually have 55 controls in place right now across 150 accounts. So as you can see, this gets a bit chaotic to understand what's actually happening in the public cloud. So Drew's going to start talking about how we actually process and create action on this data.
So yeah, as I mentioned, we're using tools like Alteryx and Tableau. What Tableau does is pull the data from API gateway and push it into the two tables you see, historical and current. So the thing is, the data is very messy, as Alex mentioned. Think of it like your hair in the morning when you wake up. It's messy, and you need a comb to straighten it down. That's what Tableau does. That's what Alteryx does. It cleans the data up so that Tableau can better read the data. So over here, you'll see some of the visualizations that Tableau created with the data. On the left, there's a list of all the accounts that are not compliant with our control SecData3, which is encrypting our storage services. Next to it is a graph showing all the resources that are compliant, not compliant, and unchecked, respectively. Below that is a historical trend of the data, which shows if the data has been compliant or not compliant over a period of time. So what you see here is one account running against one control. In the future, we'll have all the accounts running through all the controls. And that's going to get messy. So we do offer services which can help you filter the data down for specific accounts so that each team can only see the data that's relevant to them. For example, business regions, solution groups, security domains. And then you can work with our security team in tandem on a micro and a macro level to better improve Amway's security posture.
So to take away, our solution is both cost-effective, efficient, and allows us to reach our goal of identifying risk and take action. DynamoDB is only going to cost us $20 a month in order to maintain and hold all this data and then process it and create action on it. By using PowerShell core to process all of this data, we take out that element of human error. As a lot of people have been making this transition from on-prem to public cloud, there have been times where people just make mistakes. They don't understand exactly what it is they're doing. They may make something public on accident. This takes out that element of human error, so we ensure that we're staying secure in the cloud.
But why? We all know security is important, but why is it important to us? The thing is, as Alex mentioned, we are in a period of transition, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So this security solution will help us ensure our ABOs that their data and solutions are being kept secure and better engender relationships with them. And that's it. Any questions?
All right, well, we just want to thank you guys for this opportunity. We've really learned a lot this year. Neither one of us had really known much about AWS, or I didn't know what it was until my interview. But I want to just give a thank you to my team that helped me learn a lot. They facilitated me and made me able to learn and understand all this stuff, and it's kind of helped steer me towards a path of possibly working as a cloud engineer. Michigan Tech's offering me a one-year accelerated master's program, so I'm going to be taking that and using it for computer science and studying AI development and cloud engineering. So,
yeah, and I'd also like to thank my team, and yeah, that's it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Streu, and this summer I was an intern in the Information Security and Risk Department. So I'd like to start out, just tell you a little bit about me for if there are a few of you in here who haven't known me from several years at the Optimal U Fitness facility here in Ada. So I'm currently one class away from completing my degree at Ferris State University in Information Security and Intelligence. And I have a previous bachelor's degree from Michigan State in kinesiology or biomechanics. Management experience. During that time at the Optimal U Fitness facility, I've been the assistant manager for the entire time. So about 14 years now. I'm sadly do admit that, but it's been a while. So with that, we'll move into how I put this career change to use with this internship opportunity this year. So kind of moving into the summer project, when I first came in, this is obviously a brand new world and newly exposed to working in the field of information security. So the first task I was really given was to take the existing framework that the ISR department had to go through a risk assessment and compare the standards with the ISO controls. So in other words, they do a risk assessment, they're comparing an application that's in development and measuring against those ISO controls. My job was to take that framework and reduce it and create new framework that aligned with the 7 global standards that have been published by the ISR department, allowing us to go through a more efficient, more agile, more streamlined risk assessment, saving everybody who's involved time and effort in completing that process. After modifying this framework to be adaptable for future iterations and changes, as technology changes, standards change, we need to be able to adapt with that. So with that, my test was then to go through a risk assessment with Canada Hybris. So I've done that, I'm in the process. I have 4 weeks left in the internship, so just finished conducting the interviews and going through that process of it. So to explain quickly, with the risk assessment, essentially is what we're doing is we're taking those 7 global standards that ISR has published, and we're doing interviews, we're reviewing documents, we're basically then reviewing those notes and comparing against the standards. Where are we meeting the standards? Where are we hitting the security guidelines that we need to? Where might we be falling short? Can we make improvements for the future? Are there things that we're unnecessarily exposing to risk? And evaluate that, meet with people, write a technical and executive summary report to make recommendations and hopefully improvements down the road. So one of the unique things I had as part of that was being able to monitor the actual AWS account activity through Cloud Checker for alerts, Things that might have, during the interviews or documents, come up as being within compliance, but actually we're finding may have not been or could be improved still. So kind of the general summary in terms of the takeaway of that, one of the things that really stood out to me and with my experience here was how dynamic security can be and that we can really have a very collaborative effort. So during the interviews, during working with my team for guidance, everybody I worked with was really supportive, and everybody had a mission of what can we do to protect Amway's data, what can we do to protect the ABO data that's involved in the Hybris project, and work towards solutions. Sure, there may have been some exceptions that we had to manage and address risk with, but everybody was very open to working towards a resolution that would ultimately make everybody's data and information more secure. With that, so far in the project, probably the biggest thing that kind of stood out as an area that I think Amway needs to address, or potentially, I guess, that I wasn't aware of if it's in place, is managing that risk with vendors. So with the Hybris project in particular, we have a lot of vendors involved that have their hands on the data, that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for Amway, which is in itself not a bad thing, but I think one thing that I saw was missing was sometimes clear expectations of what those vendors are truly responsible for. And that may come up in terms of patching, that may be coming up in terms of access to that data, what are their identity and access management roles, things that we can do to really clearly spell out. And I thought this was an opportunity for IT, ISR, and legal to actually work together to come up with basically verbiage and general contract guidelines that could help with every contract and agreement that we have with these vendors, so we can hold them accountable for the expectations we have for protecting those ABO's data, Amway's data, and everybody involved. Quick summary as I finish up here was just, it's obviously a big change in perspective for me. I actually went from being a contractor, employed by a vendor here at Amway when I was at the fitness facility, to suddenly being an employee and having to now be concerned from an employee perspective about the data and the risk that we're being exposed to. So this was actually a really unique opportunity for me, and it definitely made me rethink how I looked at handling people's data from the standpoint of, I started to look at it as if it was my personal data. If I was personally involved, what can I do to help protect Amway's assets? What can I do to help protect the ABO's assets? And kind of take a more personal approach with that. So again, thank you for the time today. I appreciate the internship opportunity. Again, to my team, everybody's been extremely supportive and provided fantastic guidance throughout this whole summer. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll attempt to answer.
During your analysis with Hybris Canada, what was the #1 risk that you uncovered so far in 4 weeks? I'm asking for Luke.
So it's probably the one area that it potentially exposes is, and you have to look at it as with adapting for future iterations, potentially, and this isn't due to a lack of controls necessarily being in place, but one area I felt we could make improvements that seems to impact a lot of controls is with the password complexity required of the ABOs. This was an area that, there is a standard exception actually in the works, but it is an area that impacts system development down the road, that impacts what we're able to do to manage risk in other areas, is because we don't have an extremely high level of password complexity required of those ABOs. Even though it may be an instance where we have a minor exposure of risk in terms of, for the big picture, we do have a little bit extra risk for individuals. From that standpoint, it's something I think that does need to be taken into consideration down the road is, where do we draw the line of managing that risk for an individual versus the collective? But that was probably what stood out the most so far as I'm moving through the data that I've collected.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cunningham, and I was on the IoT platform team this summer. So just a little bit about me. I go to Grand Valley State University. I'm going into my junior year, and I'm studying information systems, and this is my second internship at Amway. One of the projects I did was one of the teams we support, they wanted features for Slack so they can move files into Slack and have them processed. So we used JavaScript with AWS Lambda to watch Slack and then take files that the users drop into a channel and move them to data storage service S3, where they can do whatever processing they like, and then we will give them a response back. So instead of doing this manually, it's all automated. All they have to do is work with Slack, the messenger app that they're already using. They just have to drop in the file, and then they get their response about information that they can figure themselves about the file, if it uploaded properly, and if it worked. Much faster, much simpler, allows them to collaborate. Anyone they can choose can be in on the channel, and this is applicable to different teams as well. Right now, we just have it set up for the ICOOC team, but we set up for multiple teams. My second project was something similar. I was also using Slack. We have code pipelines, so that's how we deploy the code that we write. And before this, we had to babysit those pipelines, so we have to watch. And they can take 10 minutes or longer. We have to see if they fail. What we did was we used a CloudWatch rule to watch that pipeline and then send us a notification in Slack when these pipelines fail. So instead of watching the pipeline, developers can do anything else, any other tasks, and then they will get a notification if the pipeline did not go through properly. Project knowledge, I got to have further experience with JavaScript, something I had studied in college before, but I hadn't really seen what exactly the standard practices were, how it's actually used in a business environment, and that was great to look at. New experience with Python code. I hadn't written any Python before, and I used Python in my second project, and that was great to get take a look at what that looks like, how it's different from other coding languages, and why it's popular. Use of unfamiliar tools. ADOS Lambda, I use that a lot, especially with JavaScript. S3, the data storage service we used for the files. Visual Studio Code, that's just where I wrote the Lambdas. Slack, of course, the messenger app we use quite often. And Redshift is just another database that we use for other miscellaneous tasks. And working in a team-focused, collaborative environment. So compared to college and the internship I had before this, it was a lot of heads down work. You do your project, you do it alone, then you get it done, you have a deliverable. Here, on this team, it's a lot of working with other people, collaborating, talking about debugging code, trying to figure out errors and deciding who needs what and when, and it's a great environment. I really like, as I said, the team atmosphere, very friendly. I was welcome from the moment I got here. They're very technically progressive. You're using a lot of tools that have only been available for a couple of years. It's great to see what is available now, what they're using, how they're using it, and how it can be applied in business environments. And all the projects I've done, I could see the results. I saw that people were using them. They were valuable, they had worth, and there was no busy work, just stuff to keep me going. Thank you. Any questions? Most challenging aspect of the project? I think probably a lot of debugging. So there are a lot of errors, especially when you write code, but getting all the service to work in unison. So we have to have Slack and AWS Lambda, and we have to have S3. So we have to get that file from Slack to S3, and getting all those services to work and function properly without erring is probably the most difficult part of the project. All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so my name's Lauren, and I was an IT intern with the Leader Tools team this summer, so I'll be talking about what I worked on as a part of their team. So I go to U of M, I'm entering my junior year, I'm from Grand Rapids. Outside of class, I do software development for Michigan Neuroprosthetics and Michigan Quidditch, and at U of M I'm majoring in computer science. So my main project with Leader Tools was Downline Hat. It stands for Downline Hire Award Tracking. It's a new feature on the MyBiz site. And so right now, if an ABO is eligible for a couple of our incentives programs, either FAA or GAR, they should be able to navigate to this page. I'm not sure what happened to that chart. And see some information about this ABO, Aaron Anderson, and a very basic amount of information about their ABOs below them, but ABOs wanted more detailed information so they can make better business decisions related to those incentives. So what I did is I implemented a button. When I click on the button, I get to see information about one of the ABOs. So this only applies for Founders Platinum or Emerald Bonus recipient ABOs with one or more leg in market that's qualified for that month. So I gained a lot of experience here. This is my first internship ever, let alone at Amway. So on the technical side of things, this is also my first time really doing web development, so I learned a lot of HTML and CSS, JavaScript, and in particular working with Polymer 2.0. And I learned a lot about VS Code's functionality, and in specifically with that, its integrations with GitHub and version control. Since I've done a little bit with GitHub before as a part of neuroprosthetics, where we've done some code management there, but it's a lot more important to a large team like the Leader Tools team. So there's a lot more control around that. And then outside of the technical side of my internship, I really got to learn what it was like to be in an environment like Amway and learn what software development and project development was like in that atmosphere. While I haven't done as much work on Core Plus, my team's doing a lot of work with that, and just seeing how they interact with Magic or with the markets and how that cooperation was really, really important for me development-wise. And I just learned I improved a lot of my communication and time management skills here as well, because I'm used to, at school, just, having a project to do a couple of weeks, having to really work hard towards that, and with a longer, with more of a long-term focus, it required me to set more deadlines myself. So yeah. Any questions?
All right. How much time would you say was spent just having to learn working with Magic and LOS and all that versus the time to learn the coding aspect of it?
I actually didn't specifically work with LOS, but learning a lot of the terminology took probably about a week or so to fully get used to, and then just a lot of talking with my mentor and my manager and other people who are important and wanting downline hat to be done, just learning how all of that worked, going through the incentives and going through all those explanations as well. Yeah, took a little bit to get used to the sales plan.
Cool. I've been here 10 years, I still don't know what
Do you have any recommendations for how to solve that, potentially? It's more of an onboarding question, but.
I think there could be in general for onboarding, I think there could be a better organization of documents there. My team has documents for developer setup, but they could definitely be on one Confluence page. Also, I think just on that same Confluence page, maybe just linking to some explanations about the sales plan, stuff like that, just making it a bit quicker, like maybe reducing that that time from like a week to a couple days, that type of thing.
Let's give her a hand.
Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you.
Hey everyone. My name's Sumanth.
And I'm John.
And we're here to present to you about our Siren app.
So my name's John Ellis. I'm currently an incoming junior at Calvin University studying computer science with minors in math and chemistry. Outside of work and school, most of the time I'm running because I'm on the cross-country and track teams at Calvin. A little bit more about me. I just got married 2 months ago, so this is my wife, Jo. Thank you.
I'm Sumanth. I'm an incoming junior at Michigan State. I'm studying computer science with minors in entrepreneurship and data science. During my free time, I like to watch and play sports. I also like to sleep a lot, so this cut into a little bit. I also love traveling. I went to New York, Toronto, and Dallas this summer.
All right, so now on to our project. We were asked by our team in America's IT to create what's called the Siren app. Our team realized that a lot of times we had a place where errors in our systems would go, such as Slack or ServiceNow, but it would get lost in all the jumbled up tickets and whatever. So they wanted a place where this could go and really be focused. So we wanted it to be on our phones, where whenever something critical occurred, you'd get a notification so that you could right away get on that. So we were asked to make an app that consumed an event from an internal system, mostly focused on critical errors, and then send a push notifications to users who have selected that type of error as one that they want a notification for, and then providing details for that so that they can take action on fixing it.
So there's two sides of work towards this project. So a lot of the front end stuff is what I worked with. So the front end stuff that I worked with included Coney. So we made 5 different screens that we had. One was the login screen, the home screen, the select event screen, event history, and event information. We also added in bottom navigation to easily navigate through all the different forms. I worked with Coney Fabric as well. Coney Fabric is a tool that I used to essentially bring in data from the back end and into the front end and display it on the mobile app. And then lastly, I also used Okta to authenticate and authorize users.
And I primarily worked with the back end using a Spring Boot Java application. In that application, I made a consumer which would take events that occurred from the systems, also an event type service to define what kind of events people want notifications for, a user service to register users who are using the app, a subscription service to look up who is subscribed to which events and then send those notifications out through the notification service. And then lastly, a scheduling service which prevents spamming if a bunch of events of the same type are occurring in a limited amount of time. People don't want a ton of notifications for really the same error. So, yeah. Now we're going to take you through the screens in the app just a little bit. So our first screens are the login and the home page, pretty simple. This is where you start when you open the app. Just a login screen. When you click the login button, it takes you to a separate browser in Okta where you can just sign in with your AIU, and then it will take you into the app home screen.
So once you're past the home screen, the first page that we want you to go to is the event preferences page. So on this page, you'll have separate areas that you want to sign up for. We decided that the best way to split this up was based on teams and the type of event. So each user, once they log into here, they can select whichever option they want to be signed up for. So if you want to get finance errors, you can sign up for finance, and you'll get the ASC data error as well as the data errors. But let's say you want to sign up for just a mobile application deploy. You can select just that, and you'll only get that. So we divided up based on this. We thought that some future additions that we could make towards the app are things like severity. So rather than being alerted for everything in finance data, maybe you only want to be alerted for critical errors. So these are some of the changes that we think. And then additionally, we also think that we can add more teams into this in the future.
So next, after you've selected your preferences for which events you want to receive notifications for, notifications will actually start to come through. This is coming through in the backend service. It's going to consume those events from Kafka, and it will look up who is subscribed to that event, and will send out through the notifications, and it will show up with the source of the error, also what type of error, and then a short description that was defined.
So the next page, after you see these notifications pop up, it also pops up in the app in an event history page. So in this event history page, it has all the most recent events that the user has signed up for. In this, we also added delete buttons, so in case the user is completed with that event, or he fixed the event, or it's no longer an immediate issue, you can delete the events so that you can only see the most important events at the top. In the future, things that we can add are things such as a favorites option at the very top, maybe a filter option, so that if you want to look for a specific error or a specific type of error, you can filter the results, and it'll shorten the results to find your specific error that you're looking for.
So lastly, we have the event details page. This is just the page where once you have those events in your history, you can just click on it, and it will give you a little bit more information about that event. You will see what type it was, where it came from, what environment, when it happened. We're also looking to expand it, add some more details, possibly a stack trace if it's a error, links to other applications so that people can quickly fix it, or other dashboards potentially if that could help fix the error.
So through this app, there's a couple of benefits that we found that that could go to this company as a whole. So in terms of employees, it can help them get real-time notifications of issues rather than waiting for 2 hours and finding it in an email later or looking through dashboards and seeing it like an hour later when you check. You get real-time notifications. Your phone is probably the one device that you check the most often out of all your electronic devices. So this can easily allow everyone that has the app to see the notifications as fast as possible.
And then the app removes the need to periodically look through logs and dashboards. We have so many dashboards here in IT, and it's really time consuming to have to check those all of the time to look for errors. So having those come through your phone in a notification, to not have to check them, but to just know when they happen, can really save a lot of time.
Additionally, like we both kind of touched on, rather than looking at the dashboards and waiting or emails and waiting, you can check through your phone as soon as it comes in. And in the short term, it only seems like maybe like 30 minutes or an hour. But as those issues there's more of those issues, time adds up and time is money. So we're saving a lot.
And our last benefit, this app was a prototype for push notifications in America's IT. They've developed apps like the Business Center and the Resource Center, but haven't really touched push notifications too much. So having us be able to see those notifications be automated and come through is something that they can really use in the future and implement in their already existing apps.
So this internship wasn't just about the work we did, but what we can take back with us to college and what we can take with us in the future when we go out in the real world and do more work. One of the biggest things that I learned is software development is all about patience. Regardless, no matter how long it takes, you kind of got to stick with it. It might just be the smallest thing, so you got to, and that leads me to my next point, the knit and grit. So you got to look at every single thing. When we were working with the Coney app, there's like small things such as percentages just to display it, and you needed to look at even like 1% could make such a change. And like, because I remember with my phone when I was testing it, it looked perfectly fine, but then we pulled it up on John's phone, which is a smaller phone, and it just completely blew up the entire app. So, and additionally, just looking at detail, like I said earlier, even the smallest details can mess your code up. I remember I spent 3 hours looking for something, and it was just a line that I needed to add. So you just got to make sure you get every single point in and into your code.
So next we have the agile methodology. I'm sure a lot of people will touch on this, but learning just this new cutting edge way of application and software development was just really helpful. It's not something that we learn in school at all. So learning that, I think, will really help us in the future in our careers.
We also got to work with a lot of new technologies. I never worked with Coney before, and John never worked with Spring before. So we not only learned how those new technologies work, but just in general, in school or out of school, when we're trying to do our own projects or anything like that, we know how to look for solutions that we can't, if we can't do something ourselves, how to look for it online, where to look, and such.
And lastly, we learned about the Amway mission and business model. By this we mean we really wanted to, through this internship, learn more about like why we want to work, what is our mission, what is our vision, and talking to people here, learning about what their purpose is, why they're doing this, I think was really beneficial for us in seeing where we want to go with our careers, what we want to do in the future. Because in the end, it's not really about like the technologies. We can learn that in school, we can learn that in a lot of places, but it's about this mission and vision, and really learning that.
So some of the appreciations we had for Amway was just a celebration of small events, whether it was birthdays, work anniversaries, or a new employee coming in. Everyone always felt cared for, and we always felt like we were a part of the team, and we really appreciated that.
Next was just the helpful and caring support. It seemed like everyone there really wanted to help us and support us. Thank you. Wanted to help us and support us through our entire development process. There really wasn't anyone there anyone there who wasn't willing to help. And then also the one-on-ones. It seemed like right when we got there was a lot of one-on-ones set up with us. Even execs would set aside time just for our development. And yeah, even though we're just interns, setting aside that time was really valuable to us.
The last thing was that we saw that everyone at least in the America's IT region, it was a really tightly knit group. Everyone knew each other by first name and last name. But anytime you walk by someone, they'd always introduce themselves or just say, "Hi, how's your day going?" It really made us feel a lot more valuable, like I said earlier, and it made us feel like they didn't believe in us just as like a student or an intern, but just as a person in general, and they really were looking towards our development. Do you guys have any questions?
Only one. How many notifications did you get for end of month yesterday? That's half a joke.
Currently, it's not necessarily tied into a lot of the production systems, so we didn't have any come in for that. When we first had push notifications set up, though, we set it up with just an order QA topic, and that just blew up our phones. I think I got like 1,000 notifications over the course of like 1 hour. So. So I believe I created a JavaScript date object, and I think that just handled the time zone based on, I'm not really sure, maybe a local machine or something like that.
Oh, you're good. Okay. What was your experience with working with Cody, and like what snags and difficulties did you face that you would suggest a new Coney developer to watch out for?
I think the biggest thing was I really liked those features. The simplicity of it at first seems really nice. I really liked how you could like drag and drop, move things around, made it a lot easier rather than trying to find in the code every time. But the one thing that they should watch out for is when you're trying to find something that you can't do yourself or that you need help from or like online from, the documentation is really old. So when I looked up for like some of these, like the screenshots they were showing were from an iPhone 1. So you just kind of got to look out for those documentation, like just because it's so old and like so backdated, there's some things that you just need to like, I guess, book it. And then also additionally, there's a website called Basecamp Coney. On this website, there's where you can just basically post questions, but nearly 3/4 of the ones that I went through, the forum, it ended in the person like sending in a ticket. So there's no solution for it at the end.
All right. Hello. My name is Matthew Chesser, and I was an intern on the EAP team. So a little bit about me. I'm going into my 3rd year as an engineering student at the University of Michigan, where I'm getting a dual degree in computer science and data science, and will be graduating in May 2021. Some of my extracurriculars include being an officer of Michigan's branch of IEEE, being a member of the Christians on Campus Club, and participating in intramural sports over the course of the year. Some of my interests include big data, artificial intelligence, and deep learning. So my summer here at Amway, the majority of my time was spent on the EAP team, where unlike a lot of the other interns, I didn't really have a project to see to completion, but rather I was fully integrated as a junior developer. This allowed me to participate in the agile ceremonies, complete JIRA tickets, and work alongside full-time developers daily. I also had the opportunity to participate in a proof of concept with Amazon, where they pursued the opportunity of using deep learning for predictive forecasting. But I'll get to that in more detail a little bit later on, and for now I'll focus on EAP. So if you aren't familiar by now, EAP, or Enterprise Analytics Platform, is an ongoing project here at Amway, where we're focusing on developing a single source of truth for all Amway analytics data. And as a global platform, this involves maintaining an accurate and valid set of data that is copied from all of the Amway regions across the globe. And since it's a cloud-based solution for scalability, it's being built with Amazon Web Services. So my work on EAP was mostly segmented into 3 main areas: data acquisition, workflow, optimization, and data curation. Under data acquisition, I worked to help acquire and validate hundreds of millions of records from across the globe. And some of the source systems I focused on were the GDW and Magic, and then a lot of the LMS. And for workflow optimization, that was closely tied to data acquisition, where I helped to develop a lot of Python and Bash scripts to help speed up the day-to-day workflow for data acquisition. One such example being a Python script which helps to automate the validation of 346 GDW tables. And for data curation, that was mostly business geared. So I focused on helping to curate and profile the data in preparation for analyst SME validation. And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been helping to track the analyst's validation of global account master data, which is our ABO data. And as alluded to, some of the technology I utilized focused around AWS, with Postgres being used primarily for the data acquisition work, and Redshift primarily for data curation, with Python and Linux for interfacing with AWS and for workflow optimization. So back to the AWS forecasting proof of concept. This was a 3-day event where Amway IT Forecasting met with the Amazon engineers to try to pursue deep learning for predictive forecasting. And that mostly focused around the AWS SageMaker tool. So AWS SageMaker is Amazon's AWS machine learning service. It has 17 prepackaged models to pursue different machine learning needs, and it's fully managed within Jupyter Notebook, which is really nice for development purposes. And the algorithm that we trained was the DeepAR algorithm, which was created by Amazon and utilizes a recursive neural network, which allows it to identify trends across various time series. And this was really the main key goal for predictive forecasting, so it was a good fit for the use case. And to give you the deliverables from that, the data used for the proof of concept was 2014 through 2018 demand data from Philippines, Argentina, and India. And 2014 through 2016 data was used to train. 2017 and 2018 was used for testing. The end result was a 1 micro forecasting model per trained market. And in order to get there, several models had to be made per market to develop the best possible model. And this resulted with 10 models with a single-digit MAPE score. What that is a mean average % error, so the difference between what was predicted and what actually ended up occurring that year. And one model even had a MAPE score as low as 1.42. And to give you some perspective, Amway's current predictive forecasting models on a good stable market, which none of these are, on a good day will be 7 or 8 for a MAPE score. So this was extremely promising and is definitely something to look into for Amway in the future. So some of my takeaways from the internship, I actually came into this without any formal database training or cloud computing experience. So I had a very large onboarding process, learning all the different tools and getting exposed. But I now have I'd like to say I have a solid foundation of cloud computing concepts, but I'd be lying. I would say I've greatly improved my SQL skills for interacting with those databases. And then I've also learned to script for automation as opposed to developing software for self-contained programs. And a lot of my experiences also involve first-time exposures. So agile development, AWS, and big data are all brand new to me. And so for agile development, I think being fully integrated with the team and being able to work alongside full-time developers was the biggest benefit for me. I very much preferred that as opposed to having my own project to see to completion. I think I got a lot more out of that, and I would definitely recommend Amway IT continue to do that in the future. I also had the opportunity with the proof of concept to work directly with machine learning experts from Amazon, which is an invaluable experience. That's it for me. Is there any questions?
Well, someone has a question, and since I know Matthew somewhat.
That's correct, yes.
What was it like joining the EAP team? So that's a very large team, a very dynamic and very fast-moving team.
Right.
And being your first experience, right, as an internship. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, as you entered into that and as you progressed, over the time period over the summer.
Yeah, I think it was, the biggest thing for me was the learning curve. I think when you're working with a team that big of 30 plus people, both on-site and remote, and then also such a complex project as EAP, there was a lot of different things to get onboarded with. And one of the first projects, or mini projects, I actually had assigned while Tim was still on EAP, and he'll talk about that later, is we developed and culminated a lot of those onboarding resources into a single location on the Confluence page, which would have been very helpful to have for us, and so hopefully new hires can actually use that and see its benefit. But yeah, I would definitely say the getting up to speed with how complex the project is. I know the solution architecture is constantly changing, so staying up to date on that and learning AWS was very difficult at first, but very rewarding once you started to get a hang on it.
So my name is Rea Parocaran, and this summer I had the opportunity to work on the analytics side of the IoT platform team. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in the area. I actually graduated from Forest Hill Central High School in 2017. I'm currently now at the University of Michigan going into my junior year studying information analysis. And this is my second internship here at Amway. I was on the product lifecycle management team up in Spalding last summer. So this year I didn't have a large-scale project. I worked on smaller tasks throughout the summer and got to work in parallel with my team on completing tasks for each sprint that we had. So I just wanted to talk about a couple that I did. So at the start of my internship, I was able to implement the ingest process for the AmChef telemetry data. So essentially we were calling the telemetry data for our iCook units, and we needed to implement that into our Redshift database. And so this was a good learning opportunity for me because I had never used AWS. Like people have said, we don't really learn this stuff in school. So it was completely new to me and a good opportunity for me to get involved with those tools. A little later on, I got to work with a specific tool that Amazon uses called Kinesis Analytics that I work specifically with anomalies. So I worked with the telemetry data that the Sky units bring in, and I was able to calculate anomalies based on that data on the cut random forest algorithm. And then most recently, I got to do more research on machine learning, which is something I was super interested in school. So being able to apply that here was a really rewarding experience. But I worked with unsupervised learning methods. So they were both clustering methods of the k-means calculation and Gaussian mixture model. And I also worked with anomaly detection here. So the goal of this was to identify demo units. So if they had moved a certain distance, a Sky unit had moved over a mile, I was trying to target those so that we could identify them as demo units and eventually work with ABOs that were demoing their units to their friends or family and see if we could provide them with functionalities that would help them be better demos. So I learned a lot this summer. I didn't know a lot of the tools I would be working with, such as AWS. I also got to work with Tableau, which is a data visualization tool. And I think in the fields that I'm interested in going into, I think these tools are going to be used a lot. So I was super excited to be working with them and challenging myself this summer with all of that. I also really enjoyed working on a team that was so integrated into the agile methodology because I could really see results being delivered every 2 weeks. And like I said, this is my second year back at Amway, so I obviously enjoyed it a lot. I've really enjoyed the team that I've been working with. I can't thank them enough for really pushing me and challenging me in all the ways that they have and teaching me so much and really supporting me in that way. Amway as a whole has provided me with so many opportunities to just volunteer and get to know people in different areas. So I really tried to take advantage of my time here, and I think everyone was very supportive in that way to make sure I was given the best opportunity. And that's it. Is there any questions?
I have the first question. What's the Gaussian mixture model?
It's one of the calculations used to cluster the data, like the units that we were coming in. So like I said, we were looking at the distance that Sky units were moving. So essentially I was trying to find the right method to use to cluster the Sky units and gather them in certain distances. And so the Gaussian mixture model is one of those calculations.
How detailed is the location, that you're tracking? I mean, do you know the actual location of the unit, like coordinates?
Yeah, so they actually track the longitude and latitude when the when they're connected to the app. But I was looking at distance, so and they track it for each time that it's connected. Okay. So I was looking at over a mile, and then because there was so much data, I also had to cap it at a top, and I looked at under 1,000 miles because a lot of units are moving across countries.
So if somebody stole a Sky unit, could we help the owner find it?
I mean,
is there a Sky
guess,
locator app?
Yeah, I guess that is possible.
Hey, Rea, you did a really good job. Are there other features that we can look at in the data to identify demo units besides the distance that they've traveled?
So we came up with some predictions that we could. So a lot of them would be if you could track it as a home location, seeing how many times it returns home. So that's one way, and then as well as how many times they're changing the settings. So if they're doing a demo, it would be different. But I think what I came down to is that it's going to be multiple factors that need to go into that analysis because there's no data to say that it is a demo unit or not. So But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to reach out to ABOs personally and see if they are demoing it and what they would want from the app and how we could help them in that way.
All right, cool. What's going on, guys? My name is Griffin Lorimer. I interned with the System Monitoring and Automation team this summer. I'm going to talk about the automation of Atomic Applications Manager Agent Install. Nice little mouthful there. But that's me with my hair. I know I got it up right now, but I'm originally from Spring Lake, which is over on the lake shore. I go to Trine University now, which is in Angola, Indiana. It's about a half hour north of Fort Wayne. I study computer engineering and play basketball. And also, I'm the recycling sheriff on campus. So there's an easy question. If you don't know what recycling sheriff is, feel free to ask me. What I worked on this summer was the Atomic Applications Manager. So what that does for us is if a department needs an application to be automated, they'll usually go through this app. So this is able to provide monitoring for us and make sure that everything's running correctly. So if you need a new application to be automated, there's a process of steps to do that. So it starts off by connecting an agent to a master server, and that whole thing is the environment, and we have dozens of environments, and we have hundreds of servers. So what I'm actually working on is automating the install of a new agent server. The manual process as it stands, there's a lot of individual steps, and that leads to long wait times. So being able to automate that and reduce the manual work and those wait times is going to be able to make it turn around a lot faster. So how I actually did it was it started with a ServiceNow catalog item. So you're able to go through the portal, and in the IT services, you can fill out a catalog item to give my team all the necessary information to kind of start running with that. As soon as that catalog item comes in, automatic processes start to make sure that the setup goes how it needs to go. And then Atomic is actually a legacy software, so you can only take it so far, but that's what the ServiceNow does, is it brings it as far as it can go, and then it hands it off to our team to be able to do a couple more steps. But overall, it went from manually about a 2-week process to about a 2-day process. So that's really important for the departments to be able to see that turnaround time. So in doing that, I was able to learn a lot of technical skills. So working with Bash and PowerShell and being able to learn those, I'd never used them before, and learning them and start implementing and solving problems with them right away. And also Visio to kind of visualize all the work that I'm doing and the process flows to be able to explain it to other people and explain it to myself. And also the business skills, being able to communicate globally. Part of my team was based in Malaysia, so being able to communicate with them efficiently. The agile development was brand new, being able to work through the sprints and everything like that. And then also leading meetings and being able to talk to people and learn a large amount of information in a short amount of time. My favorite thing about Amway was their culture. Everything was super collaborative. If you needed to set up a meeting with anybody, they were always willing to do so super helpful. And also the flexibility as an intern to kind of, I think a lot of the other interns can speak towards this too, being able to work 9 hours, in the beginning of the week and take off early on Friday was super cool. My biggest thing I'd say Amway IT could improve on is creating more cross-functional projects. So you'll hear from the Magic team later, but more kind of stuff like that where you can get be able to learn a lot about Amway just by working with other interns and not feel so secluded. But other than that, thank you. Everybody on my team was super helpful. So being able to ask them questions every day, and everybody was always willing to help me with that. But yeah, is there any questions from you guys?
What was your career path to becoming recycling sheriff?
Yeah, so it's not exactly ties into computer engineering very well, but it's another passion. But yeah, so what I do with that actually is when I got to Trine, there was no recycling on campus. So I got there and I got involved with the Students Promoting Environmental Awareness and Knowledge Club, and we were able to put out some recycling bins, and then I have to manage people to pick up those recycling bins whenever they get full too. So that's been a cool experience I've been able to work on as well.
Bash or PowerShell?
Both of those are pretty tough to pick up on, but I don't know. I think PowerShell is so wacky. It might just have to take my favorite slot there. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Weber. I'm a senior at Michigan State University studying computer engineering. I'm from Hale, Michigan, and this is my third internship at Amway. So some things I enjoy doing at school is I'm in Phi Sigma Rho, which is the engineering sorority on campus. I'm also in IEEE. And then I enjoy skiing, traveling, and playing with Zeke the Wonder Dog.
My name is Andrew Jones. I'm also going to be a senior at Michigan State University. I'm studying experience architecture and computer science. I'm from Grand Rapids, and this is my first internship at Amway. And down below, you can see some pictures of my pet cat, me traveling, and also Zeke the Wonder Dog. So a little bit about our project this summer. Me and Shelby both worked on the Atmosphere Connect app. So that's the companion app for the Atmosphere Air Purifier. So it launched in June of 2017. It has a total of 60,000 users, and it's available in 17 countries. It has 4.1 out of 5 stars on the App Store, and here are some interesting reviews we found about it on the App Store. This app increases the value of the purifier for at least 100%. It thrilled me. I wasn't able to set up easily, probably because I was ignorant of the words like apps. I put a sky in auto mode and burnt a piece of paper in front of it. Nothing happened. So that's just one of our ways that we continuously improve our app is by the feedback.
So being on the Atmosphere Sky team, we were in Agile methodology, which is really an opportunity to work on multiple projects and multiple issues. So one of the first things I worked on was UI changes. So the first picture you'll see is what the app used to look like with a woman using the application in the background, and then we changed it to be more appealing to the eye with just a gradient renderer in the app so that it's cross-functional through all sizes of phones and tablets. And then we also added a filter page to the main screen of the details page, so it's one less click away for the consumer. And then I also worked on fixing bugs found in the app. So I fixed about 15 bugs so far. And then another thing I worked on was implementing the child lock feature. So child lock is a great feature for people who have children in the home with a Sky unit, so they can't control the unit while you're gone or turn it off right before you leave, and you can't control it at work or anything like that. So you can toggle this on, and then if you press the touch part of the Sky unit, it will flash 3 times, letting you know it is in fact in child mode, so you can turn that off in the application. And then another thing I worked on was aiding in market launches. So we are launching in China and India, so helping with any bugs that we found before production, and then any UI changes with that as well. And starting to look more at automation testing, so what we can do to improve our testing so developers have more time in developing rather than testing, and then also reviewing code from other developers.
Yeah, some of the stuff I worked on this summer was creating App Store assets. So with our 2 market launches and various app update releases, we've had a lot of App Store updates, and I helped create some of the apps, or some of the assets for that. I also tested and closed a lot of bugs. So I went through almost the entire of our backlog of bugs, so 80 bugs total, and I ended up closing out 20 of those bugs. I also created user flow maps. So that's that bottom picture right there. And I created these maps just to help us visualize how users interact with our app, so we have better information for prototyping and designing and planning for the future of our app. I also aided with the market launches like Shelby by reviewing code, helping out the team and the developers in any way we can, just to make that process of the market launches smooth and as fast as possible. And I also added and updated content on pages. So I added a couple pages to the app, and I changed a lot of content on various pages throughout the app as well.
So like Andrew and I said, we helped with market launches. So one of the big markets that we're launching in is China. And so we have forecasted users of 48,000 in October. So 2 members from our team actually went over to China to help fix any issues or discover issues over in their environment, so we could get their any issues that they have fixed before production. And they also brought back a lot of issues so that the developers here could work on them and get them fixed before we send it to production as well. And then another market that we are launching in is India, and we are selling 20,000 mini units in October, so you can see the different UI changes for that. And since we are only launching mini in India, we had to change a couple of the basic pages like Learn More, Customer Support, and their certifications to reflect the mini unit instead of Sky, so they don't have confusing data.
Yeah, and the atmosphere sky also plays a big role in the digital transformation that Amway is going through. Part of that transformation is creating a deeper and more connected relationship with the ABOs and their customers. And the sky, if you can read there, it says 85% of atmosphere sky buyers purchase another Amway product versus 52% of connected atmosphere sky buyers buying another product. So by being connected into the digital transformation and that whole realm, it greatly increases the connection and just the activity of our ABOs and their customers. And now we're going to demo the app for you. All right, so the landing page we have here is our unit list view. And this page shows you a little preview of the outdoor air quality as well as a card for each of your units that you have connected to your account. Then down below, you can also add another unit. So the outdoor air quality card, it shows you the pollutant breakdown, and you can also view the forecast where it will show you the upcoming forecasted pollutant and outdoor air quality forecast. And down below, you can get a bit of a more breakdown of the pollutants and find more information out about that. Then back on the main page is where you can also access the global nav, where you can access more of the back-end things or parts of our app. And I'll pass it to Shelby to show you more of the app.
One of the main benefits of the application is actually being able to control your sky unit if it's at home and you're at work. So you can go into the main detail page of the unit and say you want to put it in turbo mode. You can press the button. It'll reflect it right up here. And then I'll put it back in auto. And then it also, like we said before, has the filter life page here, so you can click on it and see your filter percentages without being too hard to find, so you can buy filters in certain markets. And you can also look at your inside air and see what that's reflecting, so you can see what it's like in your house or like in your office as well, of wherever your sky is. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And does anybody have any questions?
We use a third-party program, Brisometer, to get that data. Is that integrated to the app everywhere? Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Great presentation. For the platform that you guys developed on, could you give a little clarity as to what platform the app was built on and where you might find information about how to get started with it or documentation?
So we use a lot of Visual Studio for the code and for both Android and iOS, and then a lot of documentation is in Confluence on how we started a lot of that.
So what have been your biggest challenges working on an app for a cross-cultural user base?
One of the biggest challenges I think that we found was a lot of bug issues in different countries, like in China. Some of them might be environmental based, which we might have a hard time reproducing. So it was a benefit for our team to go over there and try and fix them while they were there, because it's hard to reproduce issues if it's environmental based in another country. And also communication, making sure that we have what they are actually wanting and making sure it's implemented correctly.
Right now, we have scheduling in the works, so creating preset schedules so you can control your unit at a certain time without using the app or anything. So that's a big feature that's coming to the Atmosphere.
Where is that wonder dog and how can I meet it?
At Michigan State football games, or hockey
Good luck.
games, or basketball games, or any games. He catches frisbees. It's great.
All right, let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nick. I've been interning on the Fusion team. And for those of you who don't know, what they're doing is remaking Amway's global pricing system. Because the current application is this dated app called Appraise, which was made about 25 years ago and has a lot of data technology that it was built on. So they're remaking that application and modernizing it, adding new features, and moving it to the cloud to be hosted on AWS. But first, a little bit about me. I'm going to Michigan Tech. I'm going into my third year studying computer science. And this is my first internship, and it's my first time actually over on the west side of the state. So it's been a lot of fun in my free time checking out Grand Rapids and seeing a little bit of what West Michigan has to offer. So moving on to my project, Amway has all of their products organized in a hierarchical structure. So basically, we have all the products that fit into different categories, and then those categories go into higher categories, and so on and so forth. And I'm creating a way to navigate through that product hierarchy in a very interactive and visual way. So if you look up at the top right of my slide here, that's what our application is currently using. It's like a checkbox tree. So you can go through and select boxes to filter out what product lines you want to be looking through. And underneath is what I'm currently working on. It is interactive, which we will get to in a little bit. But as you can see, it provides a lot more information, and it's a lot more visual. It kind of pops out at you. And it has this pie chart-like structure to it, so you can quickly access information. Like you can instantly see that green category, say you had this sorted by revenue, then you'd instantly know that that nutrition line is making up 50% of your revenue that you're generating. So the main users of this application are going to be Amway employees in marketing, finance, and sales. And the real benefit of having this tool implemented onto the application, it's going to allow these people to quickly gather the information that they're looking for using a tool that's intuitive, because there's a lot of information that our application has, and being able to break that down into a consumable piece is crucial. So now I actually have a short demo prepared. There we go. So over here on the left, we see the product hierarchy that we were looking at earlier. As I click through, it transitions, and you can dig down into the hierarchy to find whatever you're looking for. And there's this table on the right-hand side that dynamically updates based on which layer you're on. And this just provides you additional information that you could be looking for, such as revenue, forecasted unit sales, other type of stuff. And once we drill down to the bottommost layer, where it's item specific, the table is completely filled out with SKU number and all the exact information for those exact SKUs. And then we have this button that lets you jump back up to the top. Those are most of the main features. I'm not going to go through everything in this presentation. But just to give you guys a bit of a better idea on what the application can do. There we go. All right, cool. So what I learned this summer is I developed a lot of programming skills as well as some development practices and business skills. So as far as programming, I mostly built that application using TypeScript, specifically the D3 and React libraries. And since it is a web page, I had some introduction to HTML and CSS, GraphQL for querying data, and GitHub for version control. As far as development practices, pair programming is a really widely used practice on my team. So I got some exposure to seeing how the developers work together, and they pair and how they communicate and work on getting a story finished. My team's also agile, so I got some experience with sprint planning, managing your backlog, and making sure that you have your deliverables presentable in the 2-week time frame. And working with stakeholders a few different times, I actually had to present my work to people from our functional team, so people like from finance, and being able to explain my work and hear from them what features they want to see and being able to add what they want, because they're going to be the people using it at the end of the day, and you need to make sure that you're providing something that they can use. So it was an excellent learning experience, and I really enjoyed it. Some of the other things that I really enjoyed at Amway was the community and team space on the Fusion team. Like I said, it was a highly collaborative area, and there's a lot of developers with different skill sets. So you kind of go through and see everyone can learn and everyone can teach something on the team. And it's always really accessible to get your questions answered and work with other people. And it was just a fantastic experience. And it created a really friendly community that I think just made work a lot more enjoyable as well as a lot more productive. Also, the tours offered by the internship program, seeing the different departments of Amway, I thought was really cool. And the networking opportunities were also great, especially with Reverse Career Fair. Getting a chance to show off what you worked on and getting to meet people from different areas of Amway, I thought were all great experiences. And that's just about all I got. Any questions?
Hey, Nick, nice job.
Thank you.
Can you share your experience working through the ideation phase of what you were going to build all the way to when you build it and shared with the users? Like, what was that experience like?
So it was definitely very daunting up front because I was introduced to my project and what tools I'd be using, and I didn't really have any idea how any of it worked. So it was definitely very daunting as I kind of had to dive in head first and sort of teach myself how to use these tools and how to operate. And starting off with very basic, like at first I only had that circle, the pie chart like data visualization. It didn't have like that sidebar with the table or anything like that. And just sort of building up step by step. And it's really important every step of the way that you communicate with your stakeholders so that you don't ever end up going off in the wrong direction, and making sure that you can stay on task, delivering what the functional team is going to be looking for.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ruben Peña. I worked with the Global CRM Solutions team, specifically with the verified customer sales this summer. So a little bit about myself. I am a second-year graduate student at Michigan Tech. I have an undergrad in computer information systems with a data analyst certification, both from Fair State University. My current interests are machine learning, some natural language processing, and data visualizations. Some of my hobbies that I enjoy are camping, fishing, and craft beer. I like trying out some of the new craft beers around town. Right. So what is a verified customer sale? Basically, a verified customer sale is a sale that is placed by someone verified as a unique member or a customer that is not already registered with Amway as an ABO. It's part of the new customer sales incentive program. They're trying to verify whether they qualify for it. So the VCS is an engine that would check all their order lines against rules and verify whether they qualify. And we'd send that out of Magic to be able to calculate the CSI. So there's just a quick diagram of the core process of it, just as some background. An order is placed, logic is applied, and they get flagged as a yes or no whether qualifying, and then Magic calculates it. But more specifically within the VCS, my work revolved around work with the data chain of custody, which is kind of a new idea where you track your data all the way through the system. So from global order all the way through to a decision, all the way through the Magic decision. So the key is to get visibility, data integrity, intervention, and correction mechanisms. So we want to be able to do some self-healing and see if that self-healing worked, and to be able to track those errors if it didn't. So to that end, I was working with Grafana to be able to track some of these errors. So we put all the information, we pulled it from our S3 and CloudWatch to be able to track all the stuff all the way from our Hybris orders or 5G POS, depending on which market we're working in, all the way through the web methods, and then to VCS, whether they published or not. So my work was on the red box there for the published errors to track the errors. And then from there, we would work further to build drill down tables to be able to check to see where, like what event aggregator it failed on. So in order to do this, we had to do some error mapping. So I used Kinesis and CloudFormation to define a fire hose. And then I created a Lambda using JavaScript. And then we basically pulled stuff from our SQS records. If an error failed, it would go down into a retrack queue to try to do the self-healing that I talked about. And then if it didn't, it would just go to a dead letters queue, which is basically where things go to die. Like, nobody ever sees them again. So we were trying to pull stuff to make sure that we have error tracking. So here's a quick diagram about it. So we basically we found that we needed to implement an intermediate queue from the retrack queues from all the different lambdas to be able to pull it all out. So instead of going directly to the DL queue, it would go to an intermediate queue after failing and retrying. And then that's where my fire hose came in. We pull it all through to Elasticsearch to be able to map it and then transform all the data so that it would fit what we wanted to report on using the Lambda. So hands-on experience for me, like everybody else here, I didn't get to use much AWS in any college courses, undergrad or grad, maybe just like rolling up an EC2 server to run a notebook on. That's about the main experience that we got. So Kinesis Firehose, Lambdas, using S3, Elasticsearch, CloudFormation, CloudWatch, and then also Grafana, which is something I've never heard of or used, but was very useful for all of our metrics tracking. And then I've never used any of the Atlassian tools in undergrad, so using Jira and Confluence was new to me, and it was really nice seeing the tools that help manage all the teams. Any questions?
Were you given the option to use Splunk or Kibana instead of Grafana?
We did use a little bit of Kibana to be able to verify all of our stuff, but I don't think we did anything with Splunk. I think there was some talk around it, but we never went into it.
So with your major and being able to take on, because you're doing a master's in data science,
yes.
Do you find benefit in understanding how those tools operate and gaining that experience?
Definitely, because in all the classes and coursework and stuff, they just hand you a big chunk of data and say, here, process this, run some models, check your ROE, or make sure it's good. They don't do anything about how to actually extract, transform, and load data, how to get it, how it gets to where you'll be able to use it. So it's really nice to be able to work in like an adjacent space to see how that data gets there and how to use it. And I think it'll definitely help me in my career.
Hello? Oh, there. Yeah, that works. Okay. Hi, I am Sabrina Herman, and I worked with the IT platform engineering team. I need the clicker. Sorry. So a little bit of background about myself. So I am going into my junior year at Michigan State University. I'm a computer engineering major with a fiction filmmaking minor. And that's my dog right there. All right. So a little bit of background on my project. So currently, we are using VRA software components for server configuration when, say, you go into IT Marketplace. And if any of you don't use IT Marketplace, essentially it's a place where you can go and request to spin up a server for whatever you need it to. So there's a whole bunch of automation that goes on behind that to configure it. And we're using VRA software components for that. Our goal is to replace them with Ansible playbooks, which are open source and free. So it can save us anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 a year in licensing costs, which is a lot of money that we're saving. So yay! And this kind of allow us to the opportunity to shift to more open source software, which will save us even more money. So my project specifically was just to take one of these software components and turn it over to an Ansible playbook. Coming into this, I had no previous Ansible knowledge. I didn't even know what it was. So first, my first step was to research how Ansible works. I spent a couple of weeks on a Udemy course, just learning. I also talked to a lot of people within my team and outside of my team, and sort of got an idea of how they use it. Once I felt comfortable with that, I went on to actually doing it. A lot of my project, I collaborated with my advisor, Ryan, and Steve Schofield. He was a big help in this. He's an Ansible contractor, so this is like his career. And we my attack with it was to break it down into chunks, divide and conquer. And once I'm done with it, I'm documenting the process so that my team can make it more repeatable, so that I can make it repeatable for them, so that they can continue to move over to Ansible playbooks from VRA software components, because this is a long process, and they can pick up where I left off. Some of the takeaways I had, this is my first IT job or internship of any sort. So it was really great seeing what it actually was like. And I have many skills to add to my repertoire. Pretty much everything I did, I either had very little knowledge of or just didn't know at all. So I've learned just tons of stuff. And it's giving me sort of an insight into a possible career path, because now I'm sort of considering this as a thing I might do. And for my time at Amway, overall my experience has been awesome. It's more than an average internship because it gives you a lot of, it's more involved than the usual internship, I'd say. And your projects have a lot of meaning. And you get to work with great people. There's a great workplace culture, and I loved working with all of the interns and my team. All right, oops, sorry. Whoop. Any questions?
Were you able to complete converting any of the VRA marketplace
software
items,
components.
software components to be Ansible all the way through the production environment that we have today?
So currently, right now, we are complete with sort of my side of it. We need to talk to somebody who is knowledgeable about Centrify, because the one software component I worked with was to install and configure Centrify, which allows you to log into your virtual machine. And the people we were working with on this, we don't have much experience with that, so we need to talk to somebody about that. And then next week we're going to talk to somebody else about integrating this now into our IT marketplace. So it's done on my side, but not, yeah.
And just one last thing, I was just wondering if you and your team talked much about kind of what are the future steps or future plans, for this, with Ansible. There's a lot of things that comes to my mind, like multi-cloud, You know,
Okay.
for example, I mean, VRA was very specific to the one tool,
Yeah.
right? And doing this in Ansible brings new opportunity
Yeah,
to be able to reuse this to deploy in other locations. So just wondering what the team, maybe if you guys were talking about that and maybe where that conversation went.
I know that this is sort of a pathway for us to move on to maybe not using VRO anymore, and Ansible could maybe take up the slack, but I'm not really sure exactly with the cloud part of that. But I know that this is sort of leading on to us, you know, sort of just redoing how we have it going on in IT Marketplace.
Were you able to experiment at all with Ansible on AWS?
No, I didn't learn any AWS.
Hi, I'm Scott Shumway, and this summer I was an intern in the IT Global Integration team. So a little bit about me. I go to Michigan State University, study computer science. I'm going to be starting my junior year this fall, so I'll be graduating in 2021. I'm interested in a career in either software or web development, which I was kind of able to narrow down this summer. Before coming here, I didn't really have any sort of direction into where I wanted to go in computer science, but I was kind of able to figure that out. And this was my first ever internship. So a little bit of background about my project. As you all probably are aware, we have a lot of business processes at Amway. One of those is ship confirm, which I'm going to focus on since that was the focus of my project and probably the easiest one to explain. What that means is when an order ships, we need to log a confirmation in two places. JDA WMS, which is Warehouse Management System, that's our regional system, and then Oracle EBS, which is the e-business suite, that's our global system. We have a log where transaction metadata about all of our business processes is stored, not just ship confirm, but all of the business processes. So there's literally hundreds of millions of entries in there. And then I included just a little graphic at the bottom to show what the process should be. The problem we run into is that sometimes a ship confirm will be logged in the regional system, but not the global system. When that occurs, that means an error happens somewhere in the process, and we need to take a closer look at it. If an employee in another department wants to know if a ship confirm has worked, they would need to contact the support team and file a ticket with them and wait for someone from the support team to go into that transaction log and search up their order number and get back to them. And that can take a while depending on how busy the team is, so it's not very efficient. The question we want to answer is how can we easily determine when something goes wrong with a ship confirm or some other business process? The solution that we came up with was to use the Elastic Stack, which is where we store that transaction log already. And if you're not sure what that is, it's an open source collection of products for working with big data. What I did was I wrote YAML code to find and string together related entries in the transaction log and make sure that everything that should be there is there. So for ship confirms, what my code would do is search through that transaction log, find the regional entries, take the ID number from that and try to match it up with a target corresponding entry. And if there was one there, it would log a success, and if not, it would be a failure. And then I would take those results and create a Kibana dashboard that would allow users to quickly and easily find the information they were looking for. And here's an example of showing what that would look like. This is the ship confirm dashboard. Up at the top, I'll use this, we've got some filters to filter by country and by warehouse if you need a more narrow view. You've got a breakdown by country, a graph over time showing how many ship confirms there were and the ratio of success to failures. And as you can see, it's almost all green, which is good. Down here, you've got a detailed view of the successful ship confirms, and we've got like order number, country, warehouse, and the timestamp. And below that, we've got the same thing, but for just the errors. So that would be useful if you want to log in and say, like, I just want to see what the errors were that occurred today. You would set the time interval to today and just see what appears down here, and those are your errors for the day. And you can also search for an individual order number as well. So what I liked most about my time at Amway was getting some exposure to the design process and learning how to effectively utilize feedback from users. That's something that I really, so far, haven't had experience with in my college career, and I think that's a really important part of development, so I was glad to have some experience with that. I enjoyed the flexible hours, and I can tell that Amway likes to promote a work-life balance for their employees, which I think is really important for a workplace. And most importantly, the culture here at Amway I found to be very friendly and supportive. It was a very positive environment to work in and the type of place that I would like to eventually have a career in. That's all I have. Are there any questions?
So this portal that you're building, does it also highlight when a integration only sends part of the data?
It is, we can really only determine if there's one there or not. I'm not sure what the criteria is for logging a target entry or not, so I can't really fully answer that question.
So how are you tracking the fact that there's like, from all these areas like China, for instance, so is it going into a main portal and it's captured all there, correct?
We log the country name in our transaction log, so that's how I filtered it down.
Okay, so if there's 10 events, there should be 10 transactions someplace, right?
Yes.
So is somebody monitoring this daily? Or is it not in production yet?
It has not been like given out to end users yet, so it's not really an active use, but some of us in the IT department have been looking at it.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, to piggyback on that just a little bit, Joe, this has not officially been launched in production, but I do know that our production support folks are actively using it. I mean, it has been a very valuable tool to them to track some of these transactions. So, you know, Scott, we applaud your efforts on this tool, this dashboard. So thank you. My question is, you know, when you came to Amway, you know, when I think back many moons ago when I came to Amway, there was a big wow when I got here. Can you talk about what your big wow was when you showed up at Amway for the first time and met your team?
I think it was the amount of support that I got from everybody. I could tell that everyone wanted to help me succeed with my project. And coming in, I really didn't know what to expect, but I was definitely pleasantly surprised by the amount of support and friendliness that was here.
There we go. All right, so we are the Intern Magic team. Today we're really excited to be telling you a little bit about the project that we've been working on, really working on trailblazing a path for application modernization for the Magic reports. So first of all, before we jump into the overview of our project and a little bit more about the details of what we've worked on, I'd love to do a brief introduction of our team members. So Danielle, go ahead and say who you are, where you go to school, and your role on the team.
Hi, I'm Danielle Parisien. I go to GVSU. I'm an information systems major with a business minor. This is my second summer here at Amway, actually second year on the Magic Platform team. It's a great experience, different from last year, and I'm going to pass it on to Christi, Kayla.
Yeah, sure, I'll go next. All right, hi, I'm Kayla Hunt. I was the product owner for the Magic Intern team this summer, and right now I am going to the University of Texas at Dallas doing my MBA. All right, Jalynn, go ahead.
Well, my name's Jalynn Bell. I am going into my junior year at Michigan State University with a major in computer science and a minor in graphic design, and my role on the team was quality assurance.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jake Scott. This is my third year back here at Amway, so a lot of familiar faces this year. So I'm majoring in computer science at Penn State, graduating hopefully this fall. And my role on the team this year was kind of in a tech lead role, since this was sort of an extension of what I did last year. So.
Hi, everybody. My name's Christi Wohlford. This is also my third year back at Amway, first year on the Magic team. I am my major is Management Information Systems at Michigan Tech with a minor in computer science.
Awesome. All right, so we'll just go into a brief overview of the different topics that we'll be covering today, and then I will have Danielle jump in for the project outline. So first of all, we're going to give a brief project overview, kind of talk about the high-level overview of the things that we were wanting to accomplish. Christi will talk about the framework and code that we were able to build during this 12-week time period. Jake will talk about Danielle will talk about the LOS and annual volume templates, and those were the two reports that we really wanted to convert to be able to work with the Jasper program. Jake will talk a little bit about some of the big challenges that we came up against with this project and how we overcame them and documented them for future reference. Jalynn will talk a little bit about her role in quality assurance as well as some of the documentation that we're leaving for the team. Lastly, I will talk a little bit about priority reports and how we came up with a framework for deciding which reports we need to tackle next. And after that, just kind of conclude with the business purpose and overall strategy of why we're doing this, and then have a little bit of time for Q&A. All right, so Danielle, go ahead.
So our current project that we literally just finished a couple days ago was replacing and finding a way to prove that Jasper Studio can replace a current way of doing reports for the Magic team, which was currently using the Oracle BI publisher, which has been expired, let's say. So our solution for that was going through code and templates and documentation for Jasper Studio. This was a project, as Jake mentioned earlier, that was his project last summer, and I was the same intern on the Magic Platform team last year too with him. And my last 2 weeks of my internship last year was this project as well. So if you were to think about it, we're kind of like the masters behind Jasper. So this year we're leading 3 other people, teaching them and trying to implement and proving that this new experiment of Jasper and intern team, because this is the first time Agile intern team has been implemented. And any extras for our 12 weeks was dashboards for Jasper reports and priority reports. So as I mentioned, we did Agile. So we had 9:30 stand-ups every day. It's not necessarily like this week because of everything that's been going on. But we were able to have 4 sprints, 3 retros and grooming sessions, and we were able to keep everyone accountable for their actions or parts of their project, different portions if one was waiting, that we know that it's waiting for someone else. We literally just closed our 3rd epic when the presentation started right over there. So we were doing little claps in between everyone's presentations. So this was the first Agile intern team, as I mentioned, and it was a very huge success. And even though if we didn't have Agile, I don't think this would have worked out. It would have been harder to keep portions going, seeing where everyone's at, the waiting parts, and etc. So now I want to talk about my role in this project. I was the project manager and scrum master. Since we're able to have, as I mentioned, keep mentioning, is an Agile team, we're able to each have our own roles and go from there. So this isn't more in depth than what I did. The scrum master, which I did every day, was to stand up and help lead that. If I wasn't there, Kayla, who was next in line, would be the PO, would help me with doing Agile in the morning. As project manager, I would make some portions of the project for our team. My baby from last year was Docker and dashboards, so I was able to create a new extension to our project this year, which was making dashboards for Jasper Report for one of our interns. And also from that, I worked really close with Kayla, our PO, and make sure that I was keeping accountable and updated with everyone else. And from there, Christi's going to be talking about the framework.
Okay, so as you saw, I was a developer on the team. So this is kind of the framework of how we handled the code. Previously with BI Publisher, it was a lot of reports created, and within that you had a section to handle interactive reports, and then for every single report you had a helper to handle the scheduled. So what we did instead was we created 2 major classes that handled anything you threw at it, whether it was interactive or scheduled. And then all you really have to do is have the reports either creating new specific for Jasper, or what we did, because we didn't necessarily have time to do that, wasn't in our scope of the project, is we went into annual volume and LOS maps, and we created a bit of a switch to use Jasper versus the BI Publisher. So next. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more in depth about how we handled that. So for the interactive helper, we really just created a string URL that holds the report info. It is then returns the URL to Magic. Magic redirects it to Jasper, and Jasper creates the report. So it's pretty straightforward, and it does currently work. Another thing is that you don't need to authenticate every time you log in, so it does that automatically for you. The scheduled helper is a little bit different. We chose to send a curl command string since there were so many different things that it needed to do. It does send it to Jasper, and Jasper does create the report accordingly. However, currently it is not working, and Jake will go into that a little bit more in depth, but we're continually working on that. And then the switch is really just logic within it. We didn't want to touch any of the old report code, obviously, since it works for the old report way. So we really just created some logic statements to tell whether it is Jasper reports or not. And that's just simply by a constant, and you can turn that on or off, which will allow the logic to run. So next, Danielle will go back to talking about templates.
So for my portion of what I did other than the project manager and Scrum Master was from my expertise of what I did last summer to this summer was working on the template side. So out of all of us, Christi and Jake were really in depth with the code, and then I did the templates, so all three of us worked together a lot on that. And we get a lot of questions about like why Jasper for replacing blah, 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 blah. And I just wanted to go in depth about that. So it's better performance and it's more updated. As I said before, that Oracle is kind of outdated and it's slow and everyone are getting frustrated with it. So this is a new implementation that will go with our digital transformation. This has the tools that we need to build any type of report. It's literally a blank canvas and you can put anything you want on there. You can add fields, parameters, variables. So it can implement in any kind of shape or form. Even though it's Oracle, it does cost us money, and we do have a monthly fee. And what we're making through this is the free Jasper community. And we did get some questions like, is there any downsides to using the community? Because you know, when you use a free software, there's always going to be issues and different things that you might not think of. And for my portion and my side of it, which is the template, which is the most important part for this visual, is I haven't had any issues with the free Jasper report. So that goes into learning curve of it. How long will it take for a new person to learn this? Well, with all of our documentation, it's easy to step along. Once you get it, then you can start pulling out reports. For someone who has expertise, and me and Jake are the only ones that know how to make reports out of the entire Magic Platform team. For a mom, it varies throughout how hard the report is. So if the report's easy, like for example, like the annual that I made, that would take 2 to 3 weeks. And then a harder one like ILB or LOS would take 2 to 3 as well, but maybe even 4 with debugging, testing, and going over and putting it finally on the Magic UI. And this is an example of what the annual looks like on the Jasper UI. This is before local testing. This is before actually deploying it on the Magic UI. And this is what the software interface will look like. You can see on the left and right side of the pictures that there will be toolbars right there. And on the bottom, you can see the compiling, and you can fix errors and go through everything you need on there. If you need to implement something, like we had some issues, which Jake will talk about, we need to add in big decimal to our Java. We can add Java on here too.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we ran up against in this project and how we sort of dealt with them. So one of the big problems we ran into early on in the process was there was sort of a pre-built way to connect the client side to the Jasper server. This pre-built REST client was what I used last year in my project, so we were kind of under the assumption that it was going to work fine. We started implementing that and got to the sort of testing phase of it and found out that there was a major incompatibility, there was a major change in the way that Jasper handled certain data coming from the client to the server, and that version of that client was no longer compatible essentially with the new version of the server. So we wanted to use the most modern version possible. So we actually had to throw out that old way of doing it and come up with a new way. So what we did is we sat down in a room essentially and redesigned the code framework from the ground up to work directly with the Jasper REST service rather than using this pre-made client. So we kind of made our own client. So this is sort of what everyone's kind of been talking about. So the Jasper server right now is not accepting for scheduling reports. As was mentioned earlier, there's 2 ways to run a report within Magic. There's the interactive mode and the scheduled mode. The interactive mode is essentially, I want this report right now in my browser and I want it done as soon as possible. So that method works currently with Jasper completely fine. The scheduled mode is sort of, I want this report whenever the server gets to it, and it frees up your browser. You can go do something else in the meantime while you wait for it to get emailed to you. Right now, what we're doing is we're creating a JSON packet and sending it to Jasper to build the report job and essentially process all that. Jasper will create the job and does run it, but it will be blank because the parameters part of that object isn't being read correctly. So we're actually currently researching solutions, and several of the team members are going to be continuing to work on that, despite some of us leaving soon. So we're hopeful that we're close to a solution on that. So yeah. And then finally, this was more on the template side, less on the code side. And Danielle mentioned this briefly. We had an issue with types not being supported on the templates. So one quirk about how we're handling some of our large numbers is they're being handled as big decimal types. And these types can't be natively interpreted by the Jasper Studio software. So what we had to do was build essentially a Java package. We had to build new code that could be attached to the template and run whenever that template was requested on the server, and would convert those types into something that Jasper could understand. So that's kind of how we solved that problem. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about delivery challenges. Jalynn.
Okay. Well, during our project, we had originally decided that we were going to do the code, template, and documentation, and that we would have extras such as the dashboards and the code for report duplication. But as we got further with the project and hit the roadblocks and had to backtrack, we realized that we wouldn't have quite as much time as we thought we would. So we decided to put the dashboards and the report duplication code on the back burner and focus on the documentation part so that what we're doing now can be continued after we leave. And as my role as quality assurance on this project, I was in charge of the validation and testing for it. And during that, I validated the Jasper Reports environment, automation and sample Jasper Soft Studio environment, which basically just made it so that we actually had a place to actually do the coding and work on the templates. And then I validated the Jasper Soft Studio custom functions documentation, which pretty much self-explanatory, allows you to create the custom functions. And then I tested the annual report. I wasn't able to get to the LOS report with the Jasper app, but I did test the annual report. And on the side, I did do a little bit with the dashboards. I got to like maybe 2 or 3 visualizations, but I didn't really get to finish what I'd like to have gotten done with that. And our project deliverables, we wanted to make sure that we were able to demonstrate that you could integrate Jasper reports with Magic. We also wanted to put together an order in which to convert the reports so that it can't be duplicated later. And we also created documentation because before there wasn't any. And we wanted to make sure that when going through this in the future that it wouldn't be as confusing as it was for us.
Thanks, Jalynn. All right, so I'll talk a little bit more about our priority reports analysis and really how we came about the decision of how to rank reports on which ones to tackle in the future. So I have a marketing and sales background, so really nothing with data analytics at all. So this was really new to me when Larry gave me a couple of spreadsheets of information and said, okay, tell us what to do from here, from the data and maybe from a couple of users. So we decided, okay, what are some of the key factors that we really need to know about some of these reports as far as how much effort and time it's going to take for each of these reports. So we were able to get the running time in minutes for each of the reports that we have available in Magic. It's really some of the top times that it took for some of those reports, as well as being able to find the number of requests per year for each of these reports. So first of all, we really multiplied those together to get the total amount of time that those reports required per year. So that's a great baseline. But then you want to get the qualitative side of it too. You want to see from the actual Magic users to see which ones of these reports they felt like brought the best value to the business. So we actually created a little survey where we sent out some of the top 15 reports that we had as far as the information for how long they took, as well as a little section on the bottom for them to write out any reports that we think we had missed. So basically we wanted to ask them, how valuable are these reports to the enterprise? And so we got that importance score right there. So with all of that, we multiplied all of those numbers together to get a grand total number that we would have as far as like the highest ranked reports. So from here, we were able to do a little visualization of what that looked like. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it to quite work as far as the size of the bubbles, but basically the size of the bubbles are the importance score. And then you can see on the axes, we have the number of requests per year, as well as the running time. So you can see some of those reports in the middle, like the little magenta and the green color, those have a higher score on all of them. They have a higher running time and a higher number of requests, so those ones are higher priority in the rank as far as the ones we need to tackle next. Also, the lighter blue one up in the top over there, the top right corner, and the more gold color as well are some of those higher reports or higher priority reports for conversion in the future. All right, so a couple other things we wanted to keep in mind too as we were going through this project was making sure that we connected this whole project to the business purpose and making sure we were tying it into Amway's overall objectives. So we wanted to make sure that we had that voice of the business and making sure that we were communicating to people the overall, like I said, the purpose of the project, which was application modernization, and making sure that we have a sustainable way to convert or way to generate these reports in the future for Magic to make sure that we can see the impact of the ABO incentives. So again, making sure that we were defining the purpose of the project and keeping the focus on the end user with a lot of our documentation. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, we've done a couple of demonstrations to show some of the work that we've been able to accomplish. We had our first Magic Team demo day on June 5th, where we sort of showed the beginning functionalities of the work that we've been able to do. And then just a couple of days ago, we did our Jasper Reports demonstration, where we showed the annual volume report with the interactive, which was awesome that we could actually have that minimum viable product to show that we can actually use Jasper Reports to generate these Magic reports. We also basically all collaborated together on our reverse career fair posters. We had it all spell out Magic and sort of went through the whole process of the project to show from beginning to end what our intentions were with our project. And then again, just making sure that throughout this whole time we were communicating the business value and purpose while showing the functionality of our work. So in just a little bit of a summary of the work that we've been able to accomplish, this again was a team experiment. We haven't had as far as a Amway intern team in the past, and especially using the Agile project management methodology. It's been really a lot of fun, and that's really helped set us up for success. Again, we've been able to prove that there's a solution, that Jasper Reports is going to really be a viable option for these Magic reports, and proving that our methodology, the framework that we've developed with the 2 helper classes, is going to be a sustainable path for the future. And even though we didn't get to all of the conversions that we wanted to, we still have that foundation and that baseline, and we've got great documentation, which is really going to help smooth and streamline that path to success for converting all of the other reports. All right, thank you very much for your time, and we'd love to open it up for questions.
You talked about logging in with Jasper. How is that working? Is that like a local login or through Okta or LDAP?
So how it works, Jasper has a separate disconnected authentication that needs to be performed to access Jasper's server. However, we know that that was a major hang-up with an upgrade, a past potential upgrade for BI publishers. So we were sure to implement a solution that essentially prevents the users from having to do that. So behind the scenes in the code, we're actually handling that interaction, so there's no separate login or there's no second login that has to happen at any point.
So what about performance when you run some of these reports? I know with BI Publisher, there's like a 10 meg limit. So is there a limit to how big the report can be?
From our testing, we were able to build albeit accidentally. We were able to build reports that were over 38,000 pages with no problem. So, accidentally.
Did you make John Parker read that report?
No.
Okay.
Light reading, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, question for you, Kayla, with onboarding and your specific role being in the global sales area, how was that kind of taking the business requirements and kind of scaling and parsing it down to exactly like specific deliverables for the team? And yeah, I mean, this is definitely unique and kind of a cool way of doing a summer for this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So especially with some of the difficulties that we encountered with this project, we really wanted to make sure that we were keeping in mind, okay, what is the overall purpose of this? We want to prove that it works. And along with that, we want to be able to, like I said, sort of pave a way for converting reports in the future and making this as a viable product. So really our intention with that was to make sure that we had that, like I said, that great documentation and that great baseline for being able to show the way for that in the future. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So we're the first like agile team. So from there, there's going to be some people who probably don't know what agile is or how to do that. I was lucky enough to have taken a course in my college courses that talks about agile, do research presentations on it, and like 20-minute presentation on it. So I had like a little background on it. And last summer, Will did a really nice introduction to what agile was, and some of us went to the training. So some of us had a little bit of background, and some of us did not. So using the agile methodology and keeping the manifesto in mind, we're able to slowly implement it. We did have a challenge with trying to organize it at first. We spent days on days trying to start it, like ticket-wise. That was our biggest challenge with all 5 of us trying to do it. But once we found a rhythm and the appropriate amount of tickets, how to break down everything, and not just worry about having every ticket for every extremely little thing, after that, it was just smooth.
There's actually one thing too that we found early on was that a Kanban board was going to be really useful because it showed exactly what everybody was working on that at that time during the day, and that was especially helpful for our stand-ups. So that was something that we implemented early on, and so I would definitely recommend that for future intern agile teams, we start off with a Kanban board as well as those GR pages.
No, good job.
Yeah.
Good
Well, and a special thank you to Larry Fernandez. He has just been a champion for us with this project. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tim Van Dyke, and I have been on 2 teams this summer at Amway. But before I get into that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So some things about me. Who am I? I am a senior at Grand Valley State University. I'm graduating in May 2020, and I'll be available for hire then. I'm an eligible intern. I have a computer science major, and I chose computer science because I've always been interested in tweaking my user experience for myself and making my own computer a lot more efficient. I'll talk about on my next slide how I've been trying to work with Linux on my own computer for configurability. And then I picked a math minor because it was only 2 more classes. I'm very interested in full stack and web development, and I've really enjoyed doing that this summer. I've had a really, really good experience on the teams, and it just further shows that I'm where I want to be. Continuing on, this is my 3rd Amway internship. My first year, I was in America's IT. I was working on the Total Web Replacement project under Aaron Cry, doing UI, UX, Angular work. My second year, I was doing infrastructure as code with Leon Hollowell, and I'll get to what I was doing this year on the next few slides. So one thing that I've been interested in doing lately is dual booting Arch Linux and Windows 10 for myself, just so I can configure my computer more closely, and it's just something that I do mostly for fun. My brothers think I'm breaking my computer every time that I make it not boot, but no, it's fun, I promise. Another thing is I enjoy picking apart code and just seeing what makes it really tick, and it's a passion of mine. So moving on to my summers, I've been on 2 teams. The first team I was on for 4 weeks, and I was on the EAP team. The goal of the EAP team, as Matt mentioned earlier, is to get a single source of truth for the business itself. So analysts can look in one place instead of having to go to all the different tables where we have data all over the place. I was working with magic tables, helping get them into AWS, and I was doing that through various scripts, queries, and troubleshooting those scripts, and I was doing mostly data acquisition and curation there. Like I said, we used AWS, and we used a lot of the built-in automation tools, some of them including code build and Elastic MapReduce. The last 7 or 8 weeks of my summer so far are on the IT forecasting team, and this is where I've gotten to do a lot of full stack development. With that, one takeaway from this internship for me is I've done paired programming. I've really enjoyed paired programming. It really has helped enhance the ability to produce and learn at the same time. Whereas on my other internships, I felt like I spent about 4 weeks trying to learn as fast as possible, and every time I would ask a question, I felt like I was interrupting someone from getting their own work done. What paired programming allows is it allows the producing and the learning to happen at the same time. And so while I'm learning new technologies and getting to a point that I can produce on my own, the person that I'm pairing with is also getting the benefit of learning it better themselves because they can teach it. And also I can suggest different angles that they haven't thought of before, which really gives us both a bonus, and there isn't really any detraction from paired programming. I really enjoyed paired programming. So some of the things that I've worked on specifically are an email notification service that groups notifications by user and then by type. So instead of getting a bunch of spam emails for every notification that they'll get in the system, it really makes it a consumable form of being notified. So they, instead of having to swipe away hundreds or even thousands of notifications, which I'm having to do from AWS, you get to have a consumable form of information, which is very helpful. I also did the Okta user authentication integration for our app, so you can log in as yourself, which obviously is necessary. And I did some performance tuning. So for the performance tuning, we had a couple pages that were taking a very long time to load. Some of them were even taking up to 9 or 10 seconds, and through database optimization and Angular code optimization, those 9 seconds is now down to 1 second to load the page, which has really improved the user experience. What's next? I wish I could tell the future as shown in that picture, but unfortunately I can't. What I can see for now is I'll hopefully be graduating. Well, I will be graduating in May 2020. And then during the school year, I'll be working part-time for IT forecasting, and then the rest of my life. I'd love to have a career here. I really hope that Amway can be a part of the rest of my life, and I'm really hoping for that. All right, that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
So if you could pick anywhere at Amway to work, where might that be?
The technologies and place doesn't matter so much to me as much as the people I'm around and how excited people are to come into work and how collaborative the environment is. What I'm looking for in a place at Amway is a form of collaboration like paired programming and people that are excited to work with me.
So which team was that?
How did the paired programming work? Were you paired with the same person for multiple sprints in a row, or did it shift individuals every sprint, or can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's different ways of doing paired programming. In my case, I was bringing the idea to my team, so I paired with the same person for most of the summer. Ideally, you'd probably stick with the same person for one specific ticket, and then you'd rotate around so everyone can have a more holistic experience of the code. And one thing that helps with it is no one feels like a section of the code is theirs and they can keep their dirty secrets of whatever hack they did back there. It puts everything in the light so everyone knows exactly how things work and there isn't the, well, I don't know, he did that section piece. So flipping people around is generally the best way of doing it.
Steve, did you have a question? So we get all the Van Dykes to ask questions.
Thanks, guys.
How awkward is it working in the same company as your dad?
Well, besides things like this, not that much.
How about your brother?
Well, same answer.
Perfect. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Gilgen. I was on the Atlas team this summer. So a little bit of background about me. I'm originally from Findlay, Ohio, and moved up to Grand Rapids about 2 years ago to go to Grand Valley State University. I'm a management and information systems major, and I'll be returning in the fall as a junior. This is my second internship. Last summer, I was with Marathon Petroleum working on their SAP systems. So my main project this summer was the shop portal project. I helped the team out as a product owner. So what that meant was I was leading the regional process owner meetings and shop supervisor meetings and several of their downlines, talking to the regions, Mexico, Central America, Europe, India, and Asia Pacific, and basically meeting with all those folks to talk about their pain points with the Oracle EBS system that the Atlas team has gone through and implemented to all our affiliate markets. So as the Atlas team is kind of wrapping up their project, this project was one I kind of took on to kind of go through and say, how can we improve this right off the bat now that we have finished implementing it? And as a product owner, I also helped out with a lot of the project management, so working on all the functional documentation to kind of bring this shop portal idea from a concept when I arrived in May to starting the development in early July. So the opportunity with the shop portal project is to create more efficient navigation between our Oracle transactional pages that, like I said, have been implemented, and simplify the page views based on user role access. So for example, in some of the pain points that I identified in one of the meetings in our Asia Pacific market, they said that they have a lot of small shops and there may be only one user there just using a kiosk to do all their transaction work and check out users and that sort of thing. So right now they're currently using the full version of our Oracle EBS system pictured here, and we could bring that into a more simplified singular page that they could do their work in. So as you can see there on the right there's an example of a lot entry page, and there's 4 steps to get to that lot entry page where users have to input data at each one of those steps. And so the idea is that we could bring some of these lot entry and inventory adjustment or PO requisition, some of those simple transactions onto one singular page. So the solution we came up with was to develop this page as a bolt-on interface to Oracle so that it would use the latest ADF technology, and we would be cloud ready to bring this page into the cloud when we're ready at that point. So pictured here is the actual shop portal. It's currently in the QA environment, so I worked, like I said, with the business side of things to kind of go through and figure out which of the transactions we should have in scope for this project. So we determined there were 13 transactions here, and then I also worked with the business to rank them based on business priority. So talking about what they needed to see to go into the live environment first, and then their medium and lower priority transactions. And then I went back and worked with the development team and the Scrum Master to develop a 12-month sprint plan for the shop portal, and worked with the development team to also see kind of what things were actually in scope and communicate that to the business. So here are the 13 transactions of the shop portal. We started development work in early July, and we'll be going live with this page next week on the first week of August, and then continuing on with 1 out of the 13 transactions per month, extending out to a summertime next year. So some challenges that I had as a product owner for the shop portal project was working with user role access. So being able to make sure that our existing Oracle system, that the users in that would have the same amount of access in this new shop portal web app that they'll soon be using, and that they wouldn't have to request all the their roles again. And the solution we came up with here was to basically use access tokens and Oracle Identity Manager so that the access they have is synced over. And part of the project also, like I mentioned earlier, is to simplify the page views. So the idea is that not all users will see all 13 of these transactions. They might just see 3 or 4 that they use on a daily basis. Also, another challenge we had was language translations. So another pain point that I talked about with our Mexico region is the Spanish version of Oracle EBS does not have the same functionality as the English version, and that presents a challenge because not all of their users obviously speak English. So the idea with the shop portal on that is that this will be cross-functional against the different languages, and it'll have the same functionality. Also with affiliate customization, so we plan on using these in all of our shops globally. And that presents a challenge because each market uses different types of reporting tools and different types of transactions they want to see. So we want to make sure we can localize it so that it's appropriate for our affiliate. So the business value of Shop Portal, once this is implemented, it's going to increase labor efficiency. Obviously, if you have a single user in a shop kiosk, they don't need to be using the full functionality of Oracle. They could just use this portal. This will help reduce costs as the labor is more efficient. Also decrease training, so those shops have a high turnover rate, so being able to decrease the amount of training they have to bring them up to speed on the full functionality of Oracle when they could just use this simple web application to go through their transactions. This will help with revenue recognition, accurate inventory, and overall smooth out ABO order fulfillment. So some experience I gained this summer, got to work directly with Oracle EBS and the team, got to learn the end-to-end processes of how we use Oracle here at Amway, and really grew an appreciation for the program and how much it does for our financials. Also, Agile project management. So as the product owner, I got to learn the Agile project methodology, working with the 2-week sprints, and also working with our Scrum Master to develop the sprint plan. I think was a really great experience for me because I really grew to appreciate the Agile project methodology and learning how it can really bring a better deliverable to the business. Finally, working directly with the global team. This was my first time working at a larger global company, and so it was really neat to learn how to interact with our different regions and affiliates across multiple time zones and learn how that we could all come together to make a great minimum viable product for the business. I really enjoyed my summer here at Amway. I'm thankful for my team for trusting me with a meaningful real-world assignment. The culture here is great. My team and everyone else was great in giving me a helping hand whenever I needed it. Also really enjoyed all the Amway intern events and learning kind of the why of how Amway is making a difference. So thank you all for having me here this summer. I want to say a special thank you to my supervisor, Steve Nafki, my advisor, Dhruv Kumar, and my intern coordinator, Ryan Smith. They really supported me this summer and learning the project, and appreciate you having me here this summer. Any questions?
Who's the primary user of that portal page?
So it'll be our shop users and our inventory managers who don't need necessarily the full functionality of Oracle. They just need to do simple things like a PO requisition or inventory adjustment.
All right, let's give them a hand. Just wanted to say a few things at the end here. Thank you very much to our interns, very, very capable, very talented individuals, and then also to the ISR and IT core team. A lot of help this summer. During a big flux of change going on in IT, it was kind of a difficult summer to be, present and to be around kind of a division of going through so much change, even when that change is unseen. So I just wanted to, recognize and acknowledge that you guys just really knocked it out of the park. I had a quick discussion with Luke Nunice before he left. We're capable of learning too, right? So we always look to see what you learn from us, but it's actually equally as important about what we learn from you. So gaining that experience on AWS onboarding, learning, what specific business problems we're trying to solve for, I think is super important. So we'll be iterating on that, thinking about new ways to do things and kind of speed up those processes as we go. So thank you for providing that feedback. So a couple next steps. If you, so we have the room till 4. I know it's 40 minutes, but if you want to have a discussion, talk about what was delivered, or if you wanted to discuss with any of the interns, a lot of them are ending, their summer is ending tomorrow. So that's why it almost seemed like we rushed the presentation formatting, but feel free to spark a discussion. I'm this year, an iteration that I needed to capture, I need to get a picture of everybody because it was like this never happened other than the video last year. And then, feel free to collaborate as the summer concludes. So I personally can't believe it's August already. This summer kind of flew by, so kind of crazy. So thank you everyone for coming and being present. And thank you, interns. Round of applause to you.